Don't you want it? 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 You lose my dead.
The final Deadlights. Welcome to the Deadlights podcast, the season finale. I'm your host, Sam.
And I'm your other host, Leslie, bringing you the last episode of the season.
Yeah, your final weekly horror dose for the season for 2023. What a year it's been.
What a year.
Yeah.
Truly.
It has been, I think, looking back, it's been a great season. Great season, too.
Oof. Oh, a whole list.
Whole list of things.
A whole other year added.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a...
I mean, this year was a year of first. The second season was a year of first, I feel like, because we changed the form a little bit of the podcast. We started doing more live events with Logan Square Theater and Hex, and then we started the trivia. So it's been a season of firsts for sure. So I think it's been fun.
It's been wonderful also just seeing and adding to the community. So it's been really nice seeing people.
It also feels just somewhat fitting that this movie was the final movie of the season.
Oh no! Who? Why?
Who? Why? What?
Who,
Where?
Why? I was like, you already said the title.
Who? Why? What? Where? Well, we watched Final Destination from 2000, directed by James Wong, written by Glen Morgan, James Wong, and Jeffrey Reddick. Alex Browning is among a group of high school students readying themselves for a trip to Europe. When he suddenly has a premonition their plane will crash, he screams to warn the others, but instead he is thrown off the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Yeah. They kind of just described the first scene and then nothing after that.
Nothing after that.
Which, okay, leaves a little mystery for us to solve, I guess. Final Destination is a pretty famous now franchise with, I think, 6 movies in it. So, but we're going back to the OG one, the one that kicked it all off.
Man, wow. I can see how the lore has continued. And it must be pretty fun to just kind of write, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that these filmmakers are probably just sitting around thinking of creative ways to kill people.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Like a little puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, we heard the word puzzle time and time again. And it is. It's like, okay, what kind of, the like contraptions that you make for like a little marble to like go through, or like dominoes.
Yes.
And you're just like adding to that,
Yes.
building the script
Yes.
for this kind of movie.
And then going from here, having seen, I think, most of the movies that came after this, that's what they were doing. They were just trying to one-up themselves. They were trying to think of more creative ways to kill people and throw us off. Like, a lot of these deaths start in one way, and you think, uh-oh, they're going to die in this way. But then suddenly it changes right at the end, or who dies changes right at the end.
Is it like this? Is it like that?
Who knows?
Because they do a really good job. I guess we're jumping into the can.
Let's get into the can, huh? The final can.
The final can. Of just like going through and getting images of, just like, and maybe this will be incorporated into their death. Maybe not.
In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes.
This one seemed a lot more supernatural than any of the other ones. Also, we kind of saw death a couple times, like as a shadow in like the background, or water. And none of the other movies do that. None of the other movies have like a manifestation of death. This is, I think, of all of them, probably the most supernatural of them, and it really feels like death is coming after them in this one, with like the water seeping out and then receding. It feels like there are supernatural elements at play in this one, more so than the other ones.
I like the essentially just like the message, I guess, that you can escape death, because like you don't know when you're gonna pass on. So if you quote unquote skip death, it's gonna come back to get you.
I control my life, not you.
Carter.
I'm never gonna die.
The script definitely reflected on it being 2000.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. It was a lot of quips, a lot of very overdramatic expository writing, and I've said this before in other movies, it kind of felt like a soap opera at times. So after school special, there was a lot of overacting, a lot of staring off into the nothingness and thinking.
Something from that day is still with you. I know, because I can still feel you.
At times, because of the acting, we didn't know what kind of emotions they were trying to relay and for us to understand.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about Alex, our main character, played by Devon Sawa. And he's the person that we're following with through the whole movie, and all this stuff is happening to him. And so obviously it's breaking him down and essentially making him go crazy and paranoid that he's going to die the whole time. And in those scenes when he's super paranoid, that came through for me.
Right, yeah.
In other scenes, I was so confused by his emotional arcs, like peaks and valleys, because at times he felt like he didn't give a shit that his friends are dying. Like when Todd dies and he shows up at his house, I expected him to have a much bigger reaction that his best friend
passed away.
is dead.
Not to mention that one of those people had a vision, or whatever, of the plane exploding minutes before it actually did explode is highly suspicious.
Todd dies, has a very little reaction. He just more goes into like puzzle solving mode. And then also when Billy dies, right in front of him, he gets his head chopped in half in front of him. He doesn't even have a moment of like, oh my God, I just saw somebody get their head cut off.
You should have been next after looting. That's the plan. That's the design. You should be fucking dead. I mean, you're the fucking devil.
He immediately goes back into the problem-solving mode without any sort of reaction. I'm like, dude, like you at least have one moment of being like, holy shit, we just saw someone die.
And that can be because of two reasons. One, the director just didn't allow him to go there and just was trying to make him look, I don't even know if tough was the right direction, but just like
The hero?
the crazed hero. Yeah. And also I think it just like, I don't think we were quite there yet, or not a lot of script writers and directors had a very natural style quite yet.
Yes.
Although Clear, also let's talk about her name.
Clear?
Clear?
Played by Ali Larder. Clear?
Clear?
Why didn't you just make it Claire? Because Clear, like, her character definitely was also tapping into the waves or whatever, somewhat seeing the future. They kind of hinted at that. So Clear, really? Like she's clear-minded, like she's open to these things? Like, that seemed a little too nail on the head.
So Claire, why did you get off the plane?
Because I saw and I heard Alex.
Going back to the directing for a second, because the director was also one of the writers, so they're involved in everything. This was shot like an action movie, I think, more. I don't know exactly James Wong's past movies that he's made, but a lot of it felt like he was making an action movie. And that kind of comes with, like, there's a lot of sweeping shots, a lot of crane shots, extreme close-ups on people's faces with like a really wide angle.
I mean, there was a lot of explosions.
I mean, it was somewhat actiony.
It was.
But yeah, it really felt like they were going and making an action movie, which that kind of, I think, makes sense. If this guy does have an action movie background, why the acting maybe suffered a little more, because that's not exactly something that you focus too much on. We're coming out of the 90s too, literally 2000. So we are essentially still living like we're in the 90s. And a lot of quick cuts, a lot of really bright lights, you know, that kind of like a lot of lightning, but it just felt like the transitions were like in your face a little bit. It reminded me of Saw a little bit in that way, in this like kind of 90s music video style, which then also made me think this movie was almost like a precursor to like this torture porn subgenre that we get, because it's before Saw, it's before Hostel, it's before all those movies, but this movie is all about watching people die. So I think that Final Destination definitely fits within the torture porn subgenre. The acting / writing was not strong, but because of the nature of this movie, where it's mostly about the deaths and the action, it's not as important. And so, not saying that writing and acting isn't important in a movie. I do think it is important, but you can almost forgive it a little more, because that's not what we're really here for.
No.
We're here to see people die.
Especially after this.
Yep.
Being a little bit more of a Kickstarter. And it's the puzzle to people's deaths. Because it's not just like Saw, where, well, he is making a puzzle, actually.
A lot smaller puzzles. Yeah. They're trying to figure out a big puzzle.
They're just like the actual person needs to solve to get out, as opposed to this, where like we audience are trying to figure out how they're going to die. So then there's little elements that keep adding to that, and I think that's really a cool thing to write.
They're dying in the order they would have died. That's death's design.
Well, should we get into the meat?
The meat.
There was some meat in this, obviously, a lot of grinded meat. But really, what we're talking about is this idea of, can you control your destiny?
But what if it was our time? What if we were not meant to get off that plane? What if it still is our time? Unless we find the patterns and cheat it again.
I think it's interesting thinking about how we are following kids. We're following kids who are about to graduate and go off to college. And as a kid, you think you're invincible, I would say. And you think that all of your actions, there's no consequences at all. And we even have that line of Carter saying, "I'm never going to die."
I'm never going to die.
I mean, it's a stupid line when he says it, but it is pretty reflective of how kids feel. Like, nothing's going to happen to me.
Well, you're living in that sliver of time of knowing that you're going to be of age, 18. You're going to be an adult by the state of law. But you're still living with your parents, presumably. And you're still trying to figure things out. And yeah, if you have misdemeanors, they get wiped off your record by the time you're 18. So you kind of do feel invincible. And also, you've only lived 18 years.
You're no shit.
Nothing.
You're no shit.
No, I mean, I would hope that you haven't gone through really hardships, but like in an ideal world, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have at 18. You still have your whole life ahead of you. And you know, like it's supposed to be the beginning of your livelihood.
Yeah. And you think like, I have control over my life. I have this entire world in front of me, and I can make the choice to go wherever I want. But this movie is about reminding you how little control you actually do have over your life. Something random that you don't even think is important could butterfly effect into changing your life forever.
Live it up, Alex. You got your whole life ahead of you.
And in that way, it is scary to kind of think about. Because, yeah, one choice of stepping off an airplane could change everything.
Or stepping onto the street, getting into a car, anything. And, you know, and it sounds pessimistic, but there is some, you know, positivity to gather from that, is that just be present, be with folks that you love, and just try to live your life as a good person and have fun.
Yeah.
Just have fun.
I think that's, yeah, you can't live like there's an axe over your head every single day.
Yeah.
But what is interesting about this movie is our main character, Alex, these premonitions are forced onto him. He's not choosing to see the future. So through him, we kind of are asking this question of how do you act? How do you make decisions if you do know the future? He became very paranoid and very scared of everything, and angry at the world.
You tried to capitalize, but I caught you. You fuck. I could beat you.
The reality of his impending doom made him angry at the world, angry at that fact that he is going to die.
Yeah.
Now, 50 years, he's going to die.
And
So-
he's going to be cheating death every single time? That would get exhausting.
That's no way to live.
No.
That's no way to live.
And then also, if you do have a partner, like they got together, Clear and Alex, at the end, spoiler alert, somehow in between the mess, they got together.
In like 2 days of knowing each other,
And they were calling each other baby.
You know?
Baby, you're losing it, okay? The police will be here. We have to get you back to my cabin.
I think baby happens a couple of months into a relationship, not days.
Yeah.
That's something you talk about, right?
Right, yeah. And they did not.
Nope.
Clearly, they did not.
But one question that I do have for you is, do you like that Alex got the premonition? And why do you think he got it? Because that's a question that I have.
Yeah. Like the initial premonition of
Yeah.
like how this movie starts.
How did he get it, and why would it happen?
It's
Just your opinion.
It's incredibly random. Yeah, I think that the movie doesn't even try to explain why he was the one that got it, and why now. It just kind of happens.
Now, what if you, me, Todd, Carter, Terry, Billy, Mrs. Luton messed up that design for whatever reason? I saw Death's plan.
Do I need that, though? Do I need an explanation of why now, why him? I don't think I do, because life is random, and that kind of goes back to like if you are open to the world giving you messages, maybe you'll get some every once in a while, and you should listen to those instincts. And that's also a very immature thing, to ignore your instincts and just go along with what other people are doing or what you think you should be doing. So he did listen to his instincts, which in the end saved him.
Unless we open ourselves up to the signs it's willing to show us.
Did you see Todd die?
If he was randomly given this message, why is death coming after him so hard after that? Like why did this premonition come if in the end he was just going to die?
Yeah.
Because death is going to come back around anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I just found it to be very random.
Yeah.
And yeah, we needed to start the movie somehow, so an explanation for that isn't quite necessary. But I just wish, because there was, in the beginning, they mention how the dad was in an airplane crash and he survived.
It's got to be on the bag, or at least with the bag. For luck.
Where would you get a nutball idea like that?
I'm still here.
And so it just like, it seemed like there was always a little like nudge of death for him. Like maybe he wasn't supposed to be alive or whatever.
Yeah, and that was
because his dad cheated death, therefore his life is like, you shouldn't even have been born.
There was opportunity too for the dad and him to have a conversation about that, because that is a very like right in the beginning, almost like a throwaway line that information comes in. But you're right. I think that is important, especially because we're dealing with a plane, and he avoided death. And then later, after like, I believe it's after Todd died, the dad sits down with Alex and he's like, "Hey, if you ever want to talk, I'm here."
Dad, you and Mom have both been a big help. But there's something I need to understand before I can talk. To anyone.
And that was an opportunity for either the dad to confide more into him about his plane experience, and then for Alex to then take that information and be like, "Oh shit, maybe there is some sort of like hereditary gifts that are being passed down to me." But they didn't do that.
No.
They didn't do that. Alex was very much like, "I don't need to talk." Ooh.
Yeah, no one wanted to address their feelings, and nothing of what was happening to them seemed real. Like, logical.
Right.
Everyone seemed very cool. Everybody was in Xanax. Like,
yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Nothing happened.
Yeah, and also because the parents disappear after the first third of the movie. His parents, Alex's parents disappear. After the first third of the movie, even when he's like on the run from the FBI, they're not seen or around or talked to about this.
17-year-old
right
is running around.
And so, yeah, that did kind of seem like a missed opportunity for them to slide a little more information in there, and maybe a little more of an explanation of to like, why did this happen to him?
I didn't really understand why the water for Todd's death had to fucking go back to the toilet.
I didn't get that either.
I mean, unless Death wanted it to look like a suicide. But also why? Like, it doesn't matter?
What, are they going to arrest Death or something? Yeah, I think that's... Should we get to the cook?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get to the cook, because this kind of goes back to that.
It is.
Because, yeah, Death really in this movie felt like someone coming after these people. It wasn't just like the world, coincidences caught up with you and then you died. It really felt like Death was making these like winds that were pushing things over, and the covering up his own tracks by rescinding the water so people think it was a suicide. And then like is Death framing Alex? Like, is he trying to frame Alex for all this shit?
The risk of cheating the plan could incite a fury that could terrorize even the Grim Reaper. And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy.
Yeah, I didn't really like that. I wish that we didn't see Death as a shadow at all. Like, I didn't want to see any personification of Death. And there wasn't that kind of element of like, I'm personally coming after you.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand why we had to go there. It made it seem more like a demon as opposed to just a natural thing that happens to everyone, which is death. I mean, not to the extent of how like all these people passed away.
It didn't seem very natural. Well, that's the thing, is I think it needed to feel more, even though ridiculous, it needed to feel more natural. Rather than this being there and like pushing this thing along, like literally pushing it along. Yeah, we didn't need that, because that kind of goes against what this movie is trying to say. This movie is trying to say that the actions that you do will have consequences and eventually come back to you. but this having this personification of death takes the responsibility off of you and makes it feel like, yeah, it's just a demon who's after me. And then going in the cook and kind of going along with this, there was this like water and I guess fire motif that they kept going back to. And to me, that reinforces the idea of like natural elements coming after you. And then in the end, just like nature, like there's this flow of energy and nature is correcting itself. So I actually did enjoy that motif that they kept going back to. But again, he rescinded the water to try to cover his tracks. So it just felt like it's not natural. It's a demon.
I did not like that. I did not like that because then that was the only one that happened.
Yeah.
Only to Todd's death. All the other deaths were more, okay, yeah, things got pushed and blah, 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 and we know that that's death. But, like, the fire didn't recede from the teacher's house. If anything, it exploded. The whole house exploded.
Yep.
And then the quick death of that dude in the bicycle, what was his name?
Billy.
Yeah. You know, he just got his fucking head chopped off.
Yeah.
There was no supernatural aspects there. It was just like, oh, there's the sheet of metal from the car crash, from the crash of the train to the car. And then, you know, it just seemed more like cause and effect.
Yes.
Type of thing.
Which that's what it should have been, I think. That one made sense.
It could have just a little hint of supernaturalness from the water just like going down those cracks. I really like that. It was like creeping towards him and being like, hey, look, ha ha ha, I'm death, I'm coming for you. And then have it wet.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Why does it need to rescind?
I
don't understand that. I didn't get that.
I didn't get it.
It didn't make any sense.
Okay,
It did.
perfect. Well,
Perfect. Well, now we know.
We both agree.
It does make sense. Yeah, I think the cook of the villain in this movie, which is just death, they set it up to be that this is just the world coming after you. But then how they cooked it, it was like this one thing is coming after you.
I love the elements of the magazine ripping and then it being like Todd's name.
Yes.
I wish there was more of that. Those little just kind of subliminal messages, you know, getting delivered to Alex.
Yeah, and I like that idea of like if you open yourself up to what the world is trying to tell you, you could see these small things and then change what's going to happen because you're so in tune with the world. And yeah, those moments were cool when he like gets the clues of who's next, who. The Todd one was very creative. The other ones, you know, he's seeing reflections in windows of like trains and buses, and he's like, well, something weird's going to happen with that. But they weren't as creative as that first Todd one.
No, Todd's death, that's why I mentioned, like, that was personal.
Yeah.
I don't know why the hell that was so personal.
Death was like, all right, Alex, you want to cheat me? I'm going to fuck your best friend up. Here he is.
Oh, poor Todd.
Poor Todd with one D.
He just wanted to shave his non-existent hair from his face.
You got a couple more years, brother. Couple more years,
Even
so you
though
got to.
You look like fucking Blue's Clues motherfucking brother.
Blue, where's the clue? How am I gonna die?
You're gonna die.
One other thing I wanted to mention in the cook was the actual effects, which I think the effects were pretty good in this movie. I mean, they really worked well, and I mean that's what this movie is kind of about: is seeing people die and the effects of that. And I mean, I think that they really sold. You know, we got the plane in the background blowing up. I thought that was awesome.
The windows
blowing out, and then Billy's death with like the cutting half of the face off. Effective. Very effective. Since we're talking about the effects, maybe we should just get to the thrill. Yeah! Let's get to the next one. And our main villain is death. This idea of death. And I wrote down the deaths in this movie. So we have the initial plane crash, obviously. That kicks everything off. And then we have Todd hanging in the shower. Yikes.
Yikes.
And then we have Terry getting hit by the bus. And then we have Miss Luton, the teacher. Couple different things happen to her.
Hers was awful.
Computer blows up and penetrates her neck, and then it lights on fire and burns her whole house up, and then she gets stabbed by the knives that fall on her. Death was really coming after her for sure in that moment. And then we have Billy, played by Sean William Scott, head lobbed off because of a bit of metal. And then finally, we have Carter. A big old sign comes back in. We don't see it, but hits him in the back, and that's how the movie ends.
Spanked him.
It spanked him. So, of those deaths, what's your favorite?
I would like to say the teacher's was very elaborate.
I actually wrote down most elaborate death. Yoicks. Yeah, hers was very elaborate. That's what makes me think, like, hers and Todd's were the most elaborate deaths of the movie. And I liked those scenes because we're getting little clues as the scene goes on of, like, close-ups on the hot water, close-ups on the knives. And you're thinking, oh, fuck, like, how is this going to come back? And then, at least for me, the first time I saw this, it was not at all how I thought she was going to die. But all those elements were still used in the death, just in a different way than I expected it.
In her scene, everything that was closed up was involved in her death. In Todd, he goes and is looking at his, like beard, non-existing beard.
Yeah.
And then he goes to try and shave. And of course, because he has no shaving cream, he cuts himself. And then he goes and tries to plug hairs from his nose. Look, like, he doesn't look like he's quite grieving his brother's death.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His brother just died.
His brother just died, and he made a speech at his memoriam. But then, so, like, all these elements that he's using are sharp. They're in delicate places, all while, like, this very supernatural water is dripping from the toilet faucet thing in an alarming amount.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the word? Alarming amount. And then it's him, and then he's like doing little things here and there, and the water's creeping closer to him, and you're like, oh my God, he's gonna fall. But like, what's gonna happen? Like, what thing that he just grabbed is going to like fucking kill him? And no, it's the hanging.
Yeah. Which
is, like I mentioned, it was foreshadowing because Alex had some things that were hanging from his window. He had like some skeletons hanging, and I was like, ooh, foreshadowing. And it wasn't quite foreshadowing because we kept coming back to the skeletons.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. And the blades of the fucking fan. We got so many scenes of the fan.
It started, I mean, the whole beginning credits were all just fans.
Fans.
This fan is looking really menacing. And then there's also this element, too, that I'm not sure really why the movie does this, but Alex is kind of the villain in everyone's mind in this movie.
Except for Clear.
Because she's clear-minded, clear-headed. But everyone thinks he's responsible. Like, he has 2 FBI agents following him this whole time. And, like, he's under investigation for the plane crash and for all these subsequent accidental deaths. And I just don't really know why they had to have that as an element in the movie. Because we know, as the audience, that he is not responsible for this. I understand that it would be very suspicious that this guy is calling all these deaths and saying that there's a plan, there's blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. It was just kind of a element of the movie that I didn't exactly know if it was necessary to like build him as the bad guy in everyone's mind. I don't know. And also one of the investigators was Agent Shrek.
I'm Agent Ween. This is Agent Shrek. We're with the FBI.
It makes sense as to why the FBI is involved. There's a kid that ran out of the plane last minute saying that plane is going to explode, and it explodes. I feel like the United States is crazy enough, and, you know, with everything that has happened, that, yeah, you're going to take a look at that child. But then later they were like, yeah, you know, we knew that you didn't do it. And it's like, yeah, he's a stupid 17-year-old, but now there's all these deaths that are happening, and he so happens to be there when they happens.
Yeah.
I mean, with Todd, he literally just ran up, and then they were like, it was you. And he's like, he just arrived. But then what I don't like is that there was, again, this element of supernaturalness. Either you go all the way or you just don't touch it at all, because it doesn't make sense when it's partially there. Where Clear and Alex had this link, and it's like you're trying to make a love story happen, and it's annoying because I just don't see how Alex, who's absolutely in the midst of losing his fucking sanity, is going to have time for romance.
It did not seem believable at all that any of these kids were not traumatized. First of all, no one seemed traumatized, and then would have the wherewithal to fall in love with each other.
And then at the end, they're not traumatized enough to never go on a plane and never go to Paris.
They went to Paris, they got a beer, and they were like, man, that was some crazy 6 months. Am I right?
6 months. Ugh.
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah, none of these kids seemed traumatized enough, and the love story felt super just thrown in there.
Forced.
Super forced. Those two, it does make sense that they would end up together. But the reality is these people would not be focusing on having a romance right now. And also, as Clear or Carter, why the fuck would you ever want to be around Alex again if he's the one who's like putting you in these situations where you could possibly die?
He brought it up again.
He had his little fucking notes. He was still thinking about it 6 months later.
Yeah. No, which makes sense for him to continue to be invested. Like, he got the, premonitions and shit. But also, why would you want to be friends with someone like that? You, unfortunately, would want to part ways and never see them again.
Yes.
Ever.
Right. Because that, no matter what, even if it was just the plane blowing up or whatever, those people are a reminder of that trauma. And typically, when people go through traumatic things, couples, a lot of times when their child dies or is kidnapped or whatever, they don't stay together.
They can't.
They can't, because that other person is a reminder of that traumatic experience. Every time you look at them,
you have to move on, regardless of whether you want to make it work. Because yes, like, they're also suffering. You're all suffering together. There comes a point where you're just gonna be like, you know what? We just need to part ways and just unfortunately, just forget about this. We gotta move on with our lives.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we won, Carter, is a chance at a full life. A chance that I won't ever waste.
For the amount of suffering that all these people were going through physically by death, there was no emotional suffering at all. And
it was not real.
Maybe that is somewhat a reflection of the time. This is 2000, before mental health and mental, disease and trauma was really talked about that much. Mm-hmm. So people didn't think about that, I don't think, very much in 2000 of how is this affecting their minds? They're just thinking about how we're going to kill the next person. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that could be a reflection of the time, but to me, it was just these people seemed so untraumatized, not traumatized.
Nonchalant.
Very nonchalant. Let's go to Paris. Apparently, that's where you go when you have no trauma. All right, let's get to the ride.
Yeah.
Get to the ride, the final ride, how we felt this was entertaining. I mean, I was entertained, for sure. it is fun to just kind of like go along with this puzzle and try to figure out how these people are gonna die. It is like a roller coaster in that way of just, you know,
Final Destination 3.
Exactly. I think they literally did that. Yeah, in the way of like these are things that you don't really want to see, but you're still watching it for the thrill of it.
Oh, did you see me trying to like cover my eyes, but still like trying to see a little piece?
Yeah, I think that's what these movies are about. It's about the experience of going on this ride, this movie's ride, which I think it's one of the stronger points of this film. Is it keeps you in it, and everything is very driving the whole time. There's very little downtime. And the deaths are pretty good.
Hey, and at least in this one, they didn't explicitly tell you who was next.
Nope.
You were like, at first when he was like, oh my God, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it was supposed to be me and blah, 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 do. And then at the end, when it was just like Billy, Carter, Clear, and Alex, they're like, who's next? And we like didn't get it.
We didn't know. We weren't really sure.
Until after that, they were like, oh, it's supposed to be you, but it skipped you.
Because I intervened, and since I intervened, yes, that was the more fun element. Because I also feel like maybe you can't, but they pretty much tell you the order in that first scene. Because we see Alex's premonition of the plane crash. If we go into it knowing that people are going to die in the order that they died on that plane, we could probably track it. We could probably like, oh shit, Todd died first, and then it went to whoever, and this person. We could probably figure it out from that first 10 minutes. But we're not paying attention to that at that time because we don't know that information. But I think they probably slip in those clues right from the top of what the order is going to be. And I also did want to give a shout out to Tony Todd, who shows up in one scene as, I think his name is Mr. Bloodworth, I think. He's the mortician, and he pretty much is like the harbinger. He's like, death is coming for you. And then he gives that great last line.
I'll see you soon.
So good.
Love that voice, too.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. He's obviously a huge face and voice in horror. So to have him there in one scene and he's the harbinger of the evil stuff to come, it's pretty fitting.
You know, to us, they're our Reaper. They're the not the Death Reaper, but like the one that crosses you to the other side.
He's the he's the river, he's the ferryman.
Yep.
He's the ferryman, yep. Absolutely. Final Destination.
Yeah, you like that one.
That's where we ended. Final Destination. 2000.
Destination. Final movie.
Let's get to the Smash Pumpkins. Last Smash Pumpkins of the season. Do you have a number?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Wow. 4.
I've been asking for this movie from... Oh, it's been a while since like we talked about wanting what movies we wanted to like include for the rest of the season, and so I'm really giddy that we like got it for the final one.
Yeah, so odd, crazy,
it's spooky.
Looking over my shoulder for
and again, I feel like I haven't seen this one. Been a fan of the third one, and I think they're just like. They're fun. They're a little puzzle. Very easy to digest. That sounds awful because it is like you are watching people die. But you know, not to be morbid, but yeah, like it's just fun to see how it's gonna play out.
Yeah.
And I just remember my group of friends and I were so excited to see the next one. You know, when it would come out, we were like, oh my God, let's go see it.
We can't deny that this, first of all, kickstarted a franchise, a Final Destination franchise, but also I think it really did help along the like torture porn subgenre and helped along movies like Saw and Hostel, because what those movies are about are like essentially experiencing a roller coaster ride. And roller coaster rides are something that you don't necessarily want to put yourself in the situation, but you do because you want that thrill.
And it's supposed to be fun. Like when you get into a roller coaster, you're seeing that massive thing and you're like, two thoughts. How much fun? How fun and how scary if something were to happen.
You're living on that edge.
You are.
You're living on it.
You strap yourself in and you're like, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. I think the ride of this movie was super there. And I think the effects too were great. And that's what these movies, I think, really are about. Acting was pretty weak. Writing was pretty weak. The cook of things was, not there. And I think, I took a little... After this movie, I know for sure that they don't ever have this personification of death. It is much more of this idea of coincidences and the world just writing itself rather than a thing coming after these people.
Right.
That I did not like. But everything else really worked. And I think I'm going to give it a 3.
All right.
Out of 5. Yeah. Final Destination, the final movie of the season.
Wow.
We close it out at the 70th episode of the podcast. Should we see what movie we're going to watch for the first episode of the 3rd season?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yes, and it's your turn.
Ooh. My actions will have consequences.
Ooh. What do you want? What do you want the first episode of the 3rd season to be?
I'm trying to think of a movie that I've been wanting for a while. I want something actually that I have never seen before.
Okay.
I that for sure. And something to really scare me. Really just...
I want something scary.
Really,
like, I want to have nightmares.
Yeah. Let's
No, I don't want to have nightmares. But
let's kick it off with something really fucked up. All right. Here we go. Interesting. 2 New Orleans paramedics' lives are ripped apart after they encounter a series of horrific deaths linked to a designer drug with bizarre, otherworldly effects.
28 days and 28 days later?
Oh, I wish. That would have been a good one. This is the 3rd movie in a trilogy that we've been working on in this podcast.
No.
From Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, the makers of Resolution and The Endless, the 3rd installment in their trilogy called Synchronic.
That's incredible.
Wow. Starting the 3rd season with the 3rd movie in a series.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's insane.
We love Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson in this podcast, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, The Endless was so-so.
The Endless was weird.
Yeah, it was so-so. We'll see how they do with Synchronic.
Wow.
Well,
look at that.
Thank you all for joining us on this adventure that is the 2nd season. It's been a really, really fun one, and we hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for movies or the podcast in general, I'd love to hear them.
Oh, yes.
Please give us a call at 773-669-6677.
Please, y'all, we want to hear your voices. We want to know what you think. Give us compliments. No,
please.
I'm just kidding. Mostly just stories. We want to hear from you, please.
Yeah, and
hopefully share them.
Hopefully we'll get enough and have an episode we can play it on the podcast.
That would be ideal. Okay, we're running out of things to fucking talk about.
We'll always find things, but we want to hear you. We want to hear from you for sure.
I want to know more stories. I want to read them. I want to hear them.
We love stories. We love stories here.
We love stories. Anyhow, give it to us.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, I don't want to
final
close
sign
it
off.
out.
I know.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Color Me Leslie, y'all.
And me at BP Pritchie T. You can follow us at the Deadlights Pod. Also, check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we're recording this at.
We are.
But until next season,
Let's get spooky.
Ooh, season 2. See you next season. Wow, we're scissoring.